Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of the Grid Slot Gavra Racing podcast show, joined by Tucson 028, myself.
Me, Tiger Assassin.
And me, ex-Nanny G.
And this week, we actually do have some stuff what happened in Gavra Racing. This week is not just going to be ex-Natty talking to you about the GT Sport Championship, although that being said, it is up first. So, ex-Natty, do you want to take us away?
Right, yeah, so 2 weeks ago now, because there was a break week last week due to some internet issues and lobby issues. So 2 weeks ago now, we had a night race at Mount Panorama, the first and only night race of the season. And once again, in quali, Play Dutchy, another pole position for himself, another quite commanding pole, but only by about 3 or 4 tenths though to Oriel, who had his best ever qualifying session in second place, and I believe it was Toussaint to round up the top 3 in qualifying. And heading into the race, it was at first a clean start from everyone. No contact between anyone within the first few corners. However, we did have quite a few individual spins and crashes. Obviously, Mount Panorama, the second and third sector being a very tight, twisty, uphill, downhill section. Kind of like Monaco a little bit with its close barriers. Lots of crashes, I believe. Tobster at one point had a full engine damage and full suspension damage. I don't think there was one part of his car that wasn't damaged. I believe Holland Campion picked up some damage. Cryptek picked up damage. I think everyone picked up damage other than Duke and Dutchy, but Duke did have a spin and was able to get away with it, so he was quite lucky in that sense. But
I was going to say, didn't Duke crash?
Duke did have a minor spin, but unfortunately for him, he did get no damage from it. On to you for Toussaint. You picked up some damage. I believe it was at the top of the hill. Do you think you could have being able to push Oriel, or maybe play Dutchy even if you didn't pick up that damage?
I think certainly Oriel. I think when I had the damage after lap 1, I kind of had to let Duke just kind of go and do his own thing and hope I could catch up after repairing the damage in the pit stops. But when I had no damage, I was, over a second a lap quicker than Oriel, and I was catching by a lot. And then because I was pushing so hard, I made another mistake at the top of the hill, like almost in exactly the same place as on lap 1. I got more damage on the front left, and then I was just like nursing that to the end of the race. The annoying thing was that after I got that damage, I think Oriel went off at the final corner, which would have meant that I would have been a lot closer without any damage. So that was unfortunate. I guess that's the way it is sometimes.
Yeah, there was a spin from Oriel. It was like a rather bizarre place where he span. I think it was the pit lane near the pit lane entrance, which is like halfway between the final corner and the penultimate corner. So I didn't catch that on stream, but I think he lost the rear coming out the penultimate corner and then was unable to catch the car and then lost it. But after 11 laps in the race, we had a thrilling battle between Holland and Tobster, and there was a GJ in the background actually. And it was to run up to turn 1. Holland went down the inside of Tobster, and they went side by side in the run down to turn 2, and then Tobster somehow was able to hold it round the outside through turn 2 at Mount Panorama. Really impressive defending from him. And the Honda was able to keep in front for the meantime. But an interesting point in the race, there was, I think, about 7 minutes to go in the out of the 60 minutes that the drivers get at the start. Holland Campion and Cryptek, the 2 freshman teammates, had an interesting incident whereby Cryptek, a lap down, was serving a penalty. I think he had a 1.5 second penalty. And as he was serving it, his car ghosted. And then Holland Campion went to overtake the ghosted Aston Martin. However, Cryptek finished serving his penalty unghosted, and that led Holland to plough straight into the back of the Aston Martin, which then led to Holland picking up some damage, pitting, and then coming out behind Joe Black, which we move on to now. 2 very interesting, controversial crashes, I'm going to say, to 2 kind of identical moves that Holland tried on the Mustang driver down at the final 2 corners, I think it was. And what's your opinion on it, Toussaint?
I think Holland was on I think this was 2 weeks ago now, wasn't it? Holland was on the inside, wasn't he, for that corner? And then Joe kind of just closed the door on him a little bit. And I mean, I mean, Holland is, he's a car on the inside, so that already means the car on the outside kind of has to give him room. And he was ahead for a little bit going into the corner, I think, or down the straight. They're definitely side by side, but either way, he was well enough alongside to warrant space. And so when he went for the move, Joe kind of needed to give him more room and not just turn into the corner like whenever, because there is a car still there on the inside, and obviously the car on the inside can't just dictate the line, just decide to straight line the chicane if they want to. That's not how it works. But I think Joe could have given Holland a bit more space on both of those. But sometimes it's just like a misjudgment on the other driver's end, and sometimes that's what happens. But I think for it to happen twice, I would hope that in this kind of thing you'd learn quickly, but sometimes it doesn't happen.
And Tiger, did you want to say something?
I was going to say, I have to say, I mean, in general, Mount Panorama, it's always going to be a tight affair across all of the track. Really, there's not much in terms of tarmac. You can really only fit about 2 wide cars. So especially when cars go wheel to wheel, it can become a bit difficult at times. But yeah, I think it's just you just gotta keep an eye on what's happening around you and make sure if a driver is going for a move, you leave them enough space.
Definitely, and come the end of the race, Play Dutchie was able to pick up another win in his championship hunt. But talking about the championship, Toussaint extends his gap at the top to 38 points, 235 points to Duke's 197. Play Dutchie though only 7 points behind Duke with 190 points. But the championship's not over yet, and we do have 3 races to go. One at Interlagos, which is where we will be at next Thursday. And then we were off to the Dragon Seaside Trail, I think it's called, or something like that. And then off to Laguna Seca. Dragon Trail, that's it. And then off to after the Laguna Seca, after that race got moved to the end of the calendar. But that has been the GT Sports section. And now the F1 section.
Yeah, thank you, Natty, for the GT Sports stuff there. We did actually have some F1 stuff finally back on Gavra. I think it's in about, 4 weeks? About, a month, 2 months since Golden Crown?
Probably. Yeah, about that,
If it feels like that, it feels like that. Yeah,
Too
it's been
long.
a while. I wasn't racing neither of them. I think, Natty, you raced in both, and I was commentating on one. But yeah, F1 stuff starting to get started up once again in Gavra Racing here. We had 2 events this week at Austria and China, and then this coming week even, we have events at Zandvoort and Japan. Is that right, Nat?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So diving straight into the first of the 2 events at Austria, we had 2 big shocks in qualifying, actually. Mares, your Academy League champion from last season, and Holland Campion, your Freshman League champion from last season, both very, very good drivers in their own respect, qualified down in 10th and 11th positions for this race. Obviously not a actual league race where it counts towards any kind of championship points or anything, but still an opportunity for the drivers to make an impression on this season and show what they're made of compared to their rivals. And Mares and Holland Campion there would be really, really unhappy with their qualifying performances, I'm sure. But I'm sure they'll pick up for when the season actually rolls around in September. But anyway, it was Absolute 11 who impressed by taking pole by 3 tenths from Pope, with Jetsi running out the top 3. If you don't remember, Jetsi and Absolute, they raced in the weekend league last season. I think they're both front runners. They're both in the championship hunt for a while, weren't they?
They were indeed. Yes.
They were indeed. There you go. As Pope took the lead from the start, there are 3 wide down towards turn 3. There's a lot of 3s in there. A lot of drivers really using that overtake button in the opening laps. And RC8 made a massive dive bomb into turn 3. I mean, it worked, to be fair, but it was a massive dive bomb. I just, in commentary, you could probably hear me, there's an Alfa Romeo! It's diving down the inside of absolutely everything that was moving. But away from that, Natty, we saw you running wide at turn 1 off the start. How hard is it to place your car on the opening lap, and how hard is it to react to those concertina effects that happen?
If you turn 1 or full 20 cars trying to head into one corner, and it was a mix of me. First I misjudged the braking point quite badly, and decided to run wide, and I just took the wider line just so in case anyone else went wide, there was no major collisions. Obviously, I think the two cars in front of me went side by side into turn one. Didn't want to get involved in that. Rejoin the track safely, and then let everyone back through. I think I had an illegal overtake on the McLaren. Let him back through, and then obviously the start of the race, probably the craziest point, one of the craziest points in the race. So yeah.
And then we had there was more contact between Jetsi and X, I think, because he just touched on there. It looked like the McLaren just got caught on the rear wheel of your car. Is that right to saying that? It looked like just super glued together for a split second.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a weird, on board with, from my POV, it was a kind of a weird collision. We were going side by side in the run up to turn 6. But then there was a little bit of contact, nothing major, just slight wheel banging between my rear and his front. But then that kind of locked our cars together. And then for some reason my car was turning left. And then it was a crazy. I don't think there was any damage done or no one span, I don't think. But yeah,
no, I don't think so. I think
it was really
Jetsi
weird.
might have gone on the grass a little bit.
It was a weird incident.
Yeah, it's a F1 game doing F1 game things. As there's following on from that, then Mares, who's making his way up through the field from a disappointing qualifying, was up to 8th by lap 4 until at turn 8. Contact with Before You Die, and Mares was spun out into the tyre wall and had to, wall and had to pit for damage. Tiger, how did you see it?
Well, it's a difficult one to look at, especially with the camera angle that the game gives you. But from what I could see personally, that section especially, they went through that entire middle sector wheel to wheel, and especially coming out towards the end of that middle sector, it could become really, really high speed. So I mean, there could have possibly have been maybe a swipe from Before You Die. I'm not really too sure, unless he possibly could have even lost the car. But it's difficult to see with the camera angle. But that whole section of the track there, going through wheel to wheel through that whole section, can be quite difficult through that middle sector. So they both did well actually to get up to that point and keep it clean. But in my eyes, really, it was just a coming together, and it was unfortunate that Mares came out on the worst of it and had to pit for the damage.
Yeah, I mean, that Mares did begin to come back towards the end of the race there, but we'll get on to that a little bit later. Dan Schneider then off in the gravel, I think on lap 5 or 6 that was. Before You Die had, the first of multiple spins on the same lap, really struggling with rear grip, rear downforce on that Red Bull, so that the game does got something right there in terms of the car performance. But ex-Natty G and Absolute 11 were involved in a titanic battle. I mean, Natty, how much did you enjoy that fight, and what do you think decided the battle in the end, and how important was that strategic call?
Yeah, obviously it was really fun battling with Absolute. Obviously had a few battles with him in the weekend league. I remember Australia, we were battling on the final lap of the race. But yeah, his strategy call just reminded me of what I'd done to Holland in the freshman league race at Austria. He pitted, I think it was 3 laps earlier than I planned on pitting, lap 12. So I just had to react to his undercut attempt, pit lap 13. I'm not saying that died down the battle, but he definitely got an advantage in the pit stops. I think 1.5 seconds, 1.8 seconds maybe. So yeah, it was a really good fun to battle with him. I can't wait to see what league he joins next season and whether we can have some more battles in the future.
Yeah, there's a good insight there from Natty. Thanks for that. But I think what kind of did it there for that race is that when Absolute came in the pits, it was obviously, as you said, it's about 3 or 4 laps before your pit winner. Did you consider trying to go for a bit of an overcut and then making use of some fresher tires, maybe?
There was the two thought processes going through my brain. My head was one, reacting to the undercut, pitting, which is what I ended up doing, because obviously I just thought to myself it was the moment where I didn't want to lose too much time. But then the alternate strategy I could have done was pit on my scheduled pit stop lap 14, 15, and then have the fresher tyres at the end of the race. But yeah, I chose to react, and I thought I would be able to hopefully try and push at the end of the race with the 1 lap fresher tyres. But yeah, it was too quick and his strategy call worked.
All right, fair enough. As following on from that, Pope was given a drive-through penalty after speeding in the pit lane, meaning that battle between X90G and Absolute was for the lead of the race. But then Gavra Gavranovic made an absolutely phenomenal move on Jetsi for third place. That's great stuff to see, obviously, from the league owner there. Sold on the dummy, went to the left, darted back to the right, down the inside, nice as you like, cherry on top, whatever you want to say. It was a great
Daniel
move to
Avocado
watch.
move.
Daniel Avocado. Yeah, great stuff from Gavra there. But towards the end of the race, as I mentioned before, we had drivers going on to the soft tyres, some opting for a two-stop strategy at the end of the race to try and charge back through the field. The chase was on for Mares, who pitted and fell behind Gavra, I believe, just out of the points, managed to get through the cars really quickly. But with the rain on the last lap, it was Absolute 11 who took the win. But Mares did manage to get past Thunder and up into 5th position after recovering back from 10th on the final lap, but then fell victim to a post-race penalty for corner cutting, which put him down to 6th. But nevertheless, ex-Natty G and Pope ran out the podium. Mares finished down in 6th, but Absolute 11 was your victor for the F1 2020 Austria event. Moving on, China, or as one certain American likes to put it, China. So I'll leave it to you to work out who that one is. Absolute 11 then took another pole position in 2 days by 0.027 seconds to 200s for those of you who don't want to listen to that. To Jutsi with It's Julio 6/10 behind in 3rd, although the soft tyre runners probably were going to run into problems early on in the race. So it was a clean start, no major contact on that one at all. Most of the drivers kept it clean, which is always good to see. By lap 3, we had Play Dutchy already up into P11 from the back of the grid. Obviously, Play Dutchy wasn't able to participate in qualifying, so had to start from the back, but came up into P11, just showing how important it is to be, clean, consistent, and quick at the opening stages of the race. Soft tyres made only about 5 or 6 laps. I mean, Natty, can you explain your reasoning for the medium tyres? Well, for trying to qualify on the mediums and then starting on the hards once you qualified in 16th, I believe it was.
So yeah, my ideal strategy was to start on the medium tyres, qualify on the mediums, but then I completely screwed over my qualifying lap. But then I just thought back to all my previous races, and I remember doing a race at Hungary in the Premier Series, starting at the back, starting on the hard tyres, and just having just that really, just the better tyre for the end of the race. I think there's a 7/10 difference between the mediums and the hards in that race. Starting on the hards, I just thought to myself, as long as I get a clean start, maybe get a few positions, the race is going to come to me at the end of the race. Obviously, with the fresh mediums compared to everyone's hards. And I noticed a few people behind me doing it. I know Gavra and Dutchy also started on the hards. I think we were the only ones to start on the hards. But yeah, it just really helped for the end of the race, especially in the pit stop phases when all the medium runners were, when their tyres were about 40-50%. And then our hards were 35 potentially, still in good shape. So yeah, just playing the long game, and then in the end, it was able to get me up to 5th place. So yeah, it worked.
Oh yeah, as you're saying that, it turned out to be a winning strategy for Play Dutchy, that going from the hards to the mediums. But Joe Thunder and Natty were also involved in an enthralling 3-way battle about halfway through the race, which is really, really nice to see those three, battling out. They're all quite close as well off the track. So if they had crashed, there would have been words afterwards. But luckily they
imagine
weren't.
the words afterwards. God.
As the safety car came out, it looked like Before You Die and Katzeneugen seemed to have had an incident. Both of those drivers not really having much luck in these one-off events. But the safety car called out once again for an incident between Piero and Gavra, it looked like. But no confirmation that. I think we just didn't catch it on stream. Play Dutchy was now up into 3rd and was the only driver in the top 5 on fresh medium tyres. Everyone around him was on fresh hards. Dutchy was then able to do an incredible move around the outside of Absolute for the lead at the race through that turn 1, 2, and 3 snail at China. Sorry, I love it when he says that. That turn 1, 2, 3 snail complex at China, and was able to get up into the lead of the race. And as I mentioned before, went on to take the win and went from last to first. That wasn't, however, the end of the drama. Natty nudging Pope at the final hairpin before a massive incident for Pope with the other Ferrari of Joe. How did you see it, Tiger?
I mean, I'm sure Natty can explain for himself afterwards. But I don't know whether he went. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know whether he went for a switchback. I don't know whether he got caught behind. I don't know. I mean, it's X90G. It could be anything at this point. But it was, and I think that kind of set Joe's incident up. But in terms of Joe's incident, I think, well, first of all, it was last corner, last lap, which was really unfortunate for Pope. And also, but the thing is that going wheel to wheel into our final corner, you guys know how tight. I'm sure the final corner in China is is quite a tight one anyway. And I mean, sometimes you run wide and whatever. So going wheel to wheel through that could be quite difficult anyway. But no, it was just a series of unfortunate events. Really, I'm sure Natty can tell us exactly what his somewhat thinking was behind it, but yeah, I mean, it's just I don't really know how to describe it. Really, I don't know what Natty was doing, but I'm sure he can explain it now for us.
So going into the penultimate corner, just I just need to think through it. Oh yeah, all right. So I think
he needs to think how to cover it up and make himself look good.
So Pope had the DRS and the overtake button. I think probably the overtake button down the back straight. He went down the inside into turn one, and he went slightly deep into turn one, the penultimate corner. But I also went slightly deep into the final corner. Try to get the switch back on because that's what I'd pretty much been doing the whole race.
I was going to say it did look like you went for the switchback because I saw you move like when you were both braking. So, but sorry, carry on.
Tried to switch back on him, but then I just caught the rear of his car, and this happens. This happens a few. I've had this before, but it's like this weird thing. It's like you touch someone's rear, and then the car in front just like can't accelerate. I don't know what I've seen it before, but I don't know how bad it looked on stream, but I wasn't intentionally pushing him wide to let Joe go through it. So it's just an event. There's no like constructors points or anything. There's no team tactics. But yeah, there was. I've tried to switch back, and then what happened at the final corner? Like you say, tight final corner. Two cars can barely go through that final corner. It's the last lap. Both of them trying to go as quick as they can, and yeah, that happened.
Yeah, it's unfortunate there for X-Natty. But as for the third time, in case you forgot, Play Dutch, he did manage to win that race. I believe it was Absolute in second and Rick Holt rounding off the podium. So Absolute 2 podiums in 2 races. Well, a podium and a win there. So Absolute 11 coming out swinging, it seems, in this new season of Gavra Racing. That's going to bring to an end what happened in Gavra Racing this week. As I say Gavra Racing one more time, I think I might, trip over my own tongue. But yeah, it's going to bring to an end that section. If you're interested in watching any of the races we just talked about, they are all on the Gavra Racing YouTube channel, apart from the Austria event, which is on Twitch. But that gives you a chance to go and subscribe to the Gavra Racing Twitch channel if you haven't done so already. We have a lot of we're putting more of our live events onto the Twitch, and then they'll be on YouTube afterwards. But yeah, as I just said, that's going to bring to an end that section. We're going to go straight into driver interviews. So we had It's Jack's a couple weeks ago. This week, though, it's your man who finished third in the Super League last season. And so now we're going to be talking to Atimgren. How are you, buddy?
Hello there. I'm fine.
All right, good. So for our listeners who don't know that much about you, although I'm sure most of them do, can you tell us a little more about yourself? So, i.e., where you're from and what series you raced in last season?
Yeah, so I'm Atimgren and from Finland, and I last season I raced in the Super League in F1 Championship.
All right, cool. And the Tiger for the next one.
Yes. So, Tim, with 2 wins in the Super League this season, you fought your way up to third in the standings. Do you think that your performances reflected the result over the course of the season?
Well, obviously, I'm not happy with the third place, and probably that's the most I deserved from the last season. I didn't have the greatest campaign, and yeah.
All right, fair enough. Natty?
So as a follow up, kind of that fight to third resulted in a close battle with Piero, which you unfortunately lost out on. So what do you think was the main reason for this, and what do you think you can do next season to ensure that there isn't a repeat of this?
Main reasons might be probably just a bit of inconsistency and also like bad calls in terms of strategies. I think in terms of pace, I was up there, but yeah, that's not the only thing that matters in F1.
All right, yeah, fair enough. Obviously, it is obviously about getting those strategic calls right, and that. So it's good, good observation there, Atim. Now, your qualifying record, though, it must be said, is impeccable. 12 poles from 23 starts, meaning that you have a 52.2% chance of a pole position at any track that we go to, or that's your pole qualifying win rate, apparently. But either way, that is higher than any other Gavra racing driver in F1, meaning that you are the most successful driver in Gavra over one lap. How much do these records mean to you, and do you feel it places more pressure on you during qualifying?
Well, of course, I'm happy with what I have achieved in qualifyings, but no, I don't think it applies any more pressure to me. I think that just tells me that I'm strong in qualifying, and just cheers me up in qualifying.
Fair enough. So just from qualifying, nice one. All
Yeah.
right, so I think Tiger for the next one.
Yes. Looking forward to next season in the Super League. Could you tell us what your main aims and ambitions are for the next season?
Well, obviously, I'm going for the title, but we really don't know yet how good everyone is, because it's everyone's new to the game, and yeah, I think we'll see it soon.
All right, Natty.
And which driver besides yourself do you think can take the championship fight to play Dacia this season and stop him from becoming the first driver in the history of F1 at Gavra Racing to win back-to-back world championships?
Maybe your teammate. No, joke.
Yeah, we've been talking with Toussaint about probably being the teammates next season, should we end up in the same league.
Mm.
Yeah, probably you might have the pace.
No, I think that obviously, I think it's Jax had lightning pace at the beginning of last
Yeah,
season
also
as well.
Jets.
Yeah, we had him on a couple of weeks ago. I think Shankster as well, once he moves up. I think he's moving up to the Super League as well this season. Obviously, if all goes well in the evaluation races, I'm sure it will for him. He's quick, they're all quick enough. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if anyone can stop a double world champion this season. And obviously, if Atim did actually win, he would be a double world champion also. So, I think that's going to bring back to me. So, in the off season, what areas of your driving style do you feel need the most work, and what are you doing to fix any potential problems?
Yeah, like I said, probably the things that cost the most in the last season were just inconsistency and strategy calls. So probably those areas in my driving.
And what are you doing to like fix this? Is it just a case of maybe buying a wheel, or just doing many more laps in time trial?
Yeah, talking about wheel, I just ordered a wheel, and yeah, it will be interesting to see if I will have the same pace on a wheel than I have on a controller. I have always been driving on a controller, so it will be probably a learning experience next. Well, I don't have the wheel yet, but when I get it, probably the next couple months from there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'll we all do our best to help you get that back up to speed, up to speed as quickly as possible. I think once you do get it, you should. I think it's a lot easier to do like tire conservation and that with a wheel than a controller. I would assume it's in a lot of arguing about what is better on this game, but hopefully there isn't too much of a difference once we start back league racing. I'm gonna hand over to Tiger now, if the internet is back.
So Tim, recently I believe you've become a part of the admin process of driver evaluation along with Play.Chief. The coming F1 season. How are you finding that side of things in Gavra?
Yeah, it's been great to be part of the admin group. It's good to be able to have your word always listened, and yeah, be able to change some things that might be a bit like room for improvement. Yeah.
All right, cool. And Natty.
Do you think we can have any leaked information about potential tracks or when sign-ups are going to be open?
Come on, Tim. You know you want to. Here on the podcast.
No, I'm not gonna tell you too much. Just to know that the next season is under work, and we're working towards organizing it.
I think it says on the website something about 2 evaluation races. I think the tracks. If I go have a look now, I believe the tracks are
Hungary and Silverstone, I believe.
Yeah, Hungary and Silverstone. Yeah, it says it's going to be 2 evaluation races. And Hungary 27th of August, and then Great Britain 3rd of September. I'm just reading what's on the website right now, but that should be interesting to see what the outcome of those events are, and we should actually have the top 20 drivers in Gavra in the Super League, which obviously makes the most sense.
Yeah, we haven't really decided yet what we will do about the the evaluation races or the preliminary races and what tracks they will be, but yeah, we'll see.
Obviously, like, it's always good to see that the admin team here are really good at pushing things forward and making sure that we improve the quality of Gavra Racing to get it to the highest standard it can possibly be. But finally, with new series opening up in GT Sport iRacing and Dirt Rally 2.0, do you see yourself competing in another series or another game next season, potentially in a different category of cars? I know you Finns are a big fan of rallying, so.
Yeah, obviously I have the dirt rally game, and I was part of the first season, but I don't know, I can't remember if I completed the whole season. I kind of got fed up to the game, so not sure, probably not for the dirt rally. Dirt rally championships. Also, I have the PC2 game, but I got it for Christmas, I think, but I never really got into it, and yeah, probably not that either. GT Sport, I don't own the game, but I was thinking about maybe buying it when I get the wheel. So,
all right, yeah, cool.
Interesting to see if I will go that way.
Right, well, cool. I think we are running with Group 3 cars next year in GT Sport as well for next season. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I really don't have any knowledge about the cars.
Yeah, neither did I before the season started, to be fair. So that's going to bring to an end driver interviews. Always a pleasure to have you on, Atim. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again outside the podcast in a sec once they're done recording. But thank you, Tim, for coming on. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you.
All right, so we will see you later on. All right, so that was Atimgren, everyone. If you would like to be involved in the podcast in the same way he just was, drop me, Tiger, or XNatty either a DM or a PM on Discord or PSN. Our details will be in the description down below, or just leave a comment under the video saying you'd like to be on the podcast, and we'd be more than happy to have you on. We are looking for more guests. But anyway, Gavra racing stuff is over now. It's time to delve into Tiger's section for the first time this week. It's time for real world racing. Tiger Assassin, take us away.
Thank you very much to Saint X-Daddy and Atim. And yes, we're going to talk about some of the real world racing that happened over in Hungary, which was not the weekend that's just been, it was the weekend before. And we'll start off, obviously, I'd be happy for me and Toussaint that Hamilton, once again, qualified on pole in Hungary, and it was a good quality lap from him. Only a 10th ahead of Valtteri Bottas, though, so not as demanding as a gap as he had in the Styrian qualifying, but still pole position for him. A few other interesting surprises in quali, really. A bit of a disappointing one for Renault. Daniel Ricciardo got 11th, and Ocon got 14th. So a little bit off the pace as they were in Austria. And an interesting one here, and I'd like to get your two opinion on this. Alex Albon, was out qualified. By George Russell in the Williams. Now, I don't know whether, I'm not sure what happened during the quali, whether he had a bad quali lap. I'm sure he could enlighten us a bit too soon, but a little bit disappointing there from Alex Albon, especially with Max Verstappen qualifying up in 7th.
Yeah, I think that Red Bull has a massive stability problem at the rear. I think the upgrades that they're bringing to it have sort of only made it worse. I'm sure there's people more qualified than me to explain exactly why that is, but I think it's something to do with an overloaded rear or something with those extra updates. But it just makes the car really, really skittish on the rear. And I think that Max can just about drive around it, but even still not perfect, like as we saw on the laps before the grid. But Albon isn't at that stage in his career in F1, I don't think, where he can drive around a massive issue like that. And it really showed in qualifying. I think he was complaining about traffic as well, just, maybe just distracting him, putting him off his game, giving him some dirty air. But it was not the ideal performance Red Bull were looking for from Albon. I mean, is he going to be sacked? Absolutely not. I feel like he's doing a good enough job with the equipment he's been given. And, it's unfortunate his teammate is Max Verstappen, but don't forget, he did still come back to about 5th in the race. So.
And there was also a bit of a little bit of a disappointment over at the Ferrari garage as Vettel in 5th and Leclerc in 6th. Natty obviously will not be happy with the Ferrari performances. And just on that, Natty, do you think Ferrari be able to pull out some form of comeback, especially with there's quite a lot of Italian tracks, especially now being added to the calendar? I actually have a speak about the 3 new tracks that got announced for the calendar. But Natty, do you reckon that there's some form of redemption for Ferrari, or do you reckon they're just gonna? Do you reckon it's going to be the same for this season, and they might try and redeem themselves for next season when the new regulations come out?
I don't think they're going to be. I'm not saying they're slow, but I think their pace that they're showing now is going to be, evident across the whole season. But I think they're going to gradually improve the car. I think they've got upgrades coming for one of the 2 British Grand Prix. I don't know if it's the first or the second, but yeah, hopefully, obviously, it was great fun to see the Ferrari and the Mercedes battle of last year and a couple of years ago. But now I don't think they're showing their true pace now. And obviously, when the regulation changes do come, I reckon. It's hard to say who's going to be the best, which team's going to benefit the most out of it. But yeah, I think eventually Ferrari will find their pace.
But anyway, moving on, Max Verstappen, as you were saying, Toussaint, had a little bit of a crash before the race. It was sort of the wasn't really the formation lap, it was sort of the warm up lap before they line up on the grid before the formation lap, and that team had to really quickly rebuild that the front of that car and get a new front wing on there. But they did manage to do it for the start of the race, and the start of the race was interesting because it was slightly wet, but it wasn't wet enough necessarily to go onto this. It wasn't dry enough, to go onto the slicks. It was still sort of around that area of sort of intermediate to slick. So both Haas drivers came in before the start to get put on the 2 slick tires, and now they both got punished for doing that because I don't think they're actually allowed to do that. I'm not really sure. I don't know. Toussaint, do you know what happened there?
The problem that the FIA had with it was that it was driver coaching technically on the first lap, because you're not allowed to tell your driver to pit on the first lap, because I think if the radio transcript goes something like, okay, Kevin will box this lap, and then Kevin goes for the slick tires, and they say yes for the slicks, box now for the slicks. But because the team initiated that conversation, I assume they did the same with Grosjean as well. That means that it's driver coaching on the first lap, and then they get a penalty. But for me, it's a bit ridiculous because, at the end of the Austrian and the Styrian Grand Prix, you have, Lando Norris's engineer going like, overtake, hold for 5 seconds, or overtake again, B-bow, 4 or something, whatever the hell. But it doesn't really make much sense for how is that not more driver coaching than telling your drivers to pit for slick tires on the first lap? But I mean, the FA have to go by the rule book. It's one of those things there, the rules don't, I'm not going to say don't apply, but it's one of the situations that they didn't anticipate for, I feel like, when they made that rule.
It's a weird one as well,
definitely.
because you think of F1 as a team sport. It's not just the driver who makes all the strategic calls, and we also saw Kvyat ask if he could pit for dry tires. He didn't eventually come into the pits, but I think if Magnussen or Grosjean was to go, can we pit for softs or mediums, whatever? I think that's the issue the FIA had.
I think even that though, because like Magnussen said that he's like, can we pit for the soft tires, something like that, and the team were like, yes, box for slicks or something like that. But I think it's if the driver had initiated that, then it would have been all fine and above board. But my problem with it is then, so if you have like a slow puncture on the first lap and the team tell you to pit, like you, the driver, might not necessarily notice it, but let's say the PSI is just dropping and dropping and dropping. If you came into the pits, what you get, and you fight your way back up into 10th, you then get a 10-second time penalty that would drop you out of the points because your team told you to pit, even though you had a slow puncture, which to me is a bit ridiculous, but that's just the way it is sometimes. But I don't think that the Haas driver should have been punished for it, but that's just the way the rules are, and the FIA are there to, well, the stewards are there to enforce the rules, so by the book, they have to get a penalty.
Definitely, and they did get the penalty in that race in the end. But moving on to the start of the race, Lewis got a really, really good start off the line, managed to get into some clear space down into turn 1, and wasn't really involved in a battle at all, really, on the opening lap. Managed to get himself out in front quite nicely. And Susan, I'm going to come to you again because I know you shed a little bit of light on this before we started the podcast about Bottas's so-called jump but not jump start, but how he moved forward but actually was within within the sensors, and he didn't jump the start but the car actually moved forward before the lights. So what you've got a quite a strong opinion on this, so would you like to sort of give your opinion?
This slightly triggered me a little bit because, like 20 years ago, that would have been a jump start. Because, like, for me, if you move before the lights are off, it's a jump start. Like, that, it's just obvious, like, surely to anyone. Like, it's the same with Vettel last year. He didn't get a penalty because it was within the tolerance. But when it's a jump start, that isn't any tolerance. If you move before the lights are off, you've jumped the start. It's just clear. It's clear as day. To like, it's things like that in the rules that are down to a computer, but with the human eye, you can see that they've moved before the lights are off. Like for me, with a jump start, there's no tolerance. Like, it just doesn't make much sense to me. Like, you jump the start, you get a penalty. It's kind of simple as, but because of all the new sensors and stuff having the car. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think F1 now is in a pretty in a pretty good state at this point in time. I mean, better than it was in the past in most respects. Maybe the competitive order isn't as close as some people would like it, but I think for me that was, it's just kind of ridiculous. And then to hear like nothing about it as well during the race, aside from, I don't even think we saw that the incident had been noted or anything. Like they just kept going. It was just like, well, hang on a minute. So does Bottas have a penalty or not? Because like, we kind of need to know the consequence of the race and how much this actually matters. But yeah, we'll gloss over that.
All right, thank you for that, to Saint. And yeah, it was actually quite a good race, this one, because after only 4 laps, nearly everyone came into the pits apart from those Haas drivers. But nearly everyone came into the pits, and there was a big pile up in the pits. Everyone coming in and out, pit stops happening all over the place across all of the. But
Okay.
I was going to say that. I was saying about how drivers coming in and out making pit stops, and Vettel got a little bit stuck in his pit box because he wasn't actually able to get out and find any clear space around, find a clear gap to have a safe release back into the pit lane. And yeah, there was also a bit of a collision between Sainz and Latifi, where Latifi got released, and he came right alongside Sainz, right at the exit of the pit lane, and that in turn caused Latifi to have a puncture a few moments later. But yeah, there was a lot of.
Just say, quick word on Latifi.
Mm-hmm.
So I was after the race. This is in the week preceding the race. So I'm just like chilling on Instagram,
Oh, here we
in
go.
the PlayStation.
Here we go.
It's Tuesday evening, and then I just see on like one of my mates from work on their post that Nicholas Latifi was at the go-kart track where I work, and guess who wasn't working? This moron. So, so yeah, this is an opportunity to meet Nicholas Latifi, which would have been quite cool. I mean, he did have a pretty horrible race in Hungary. I think he got lapped 5 times, but anyway, glossing about my missed opportunity. Yeah, sorry, just had to get that out of my system.
Oh well. Anyway, after all of that, there was also a little bit of a battle between I'm trying to think who it was between Norris and Leclerc, and we know how them two have a good relationship, especially being in the virtual GP as well. And them two had a little bit of a battle. There was no contact or anything, came out clean in the end, but it's a little bit disappointing for McLaren, I feel, especially after the good results they had out in Austria. But yeah, in the end, Lewis commanding a win for him. No struggles for him at all. Max in second, and Bottas ended up in third. But moving on at the end of this F1 section, we'll quickly talk about the new tracks. So the 3 new tracks, one of them is brand new to the F1. 2 of them have been in the F1 calendar previously. First of all, we have the Nürburgring, which we actually raced around in GT Sport in. It was the first GT Sport race. We went around the Nürburgring GP. And then we've got I can't even remember. We've got Imola. That's how you say it. Yes, Imola.
Yeah.
I'm happy I pronounced that one right. Yes, and that I believe previously they. I almost said that, but I remember previously they actually raced in that. I believe it was back in 2005, 2006, I believe it was. So it was a long time ago.
2006 was the last race.
Yeah, 2006 was the last race in Imola, and the final race, which is a Portuguese track called is it Portimao? Is that how you say that? My pronunciation is awful, but yeah, Portimao. But Portuguese track, which would be the Nürburgring, will be held on the 9th to the 11th of October. Portimao will be the 23rd to the 25th of October, and Imola will be the 31st to the 1st of November. But quickly, guys, opinions on those 3 tracks, and we'll start off with Natty first.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all 3 of them. Obviously, the return of the Nürburgring and Imola, and obviously see how these are new cars. Obviously, they're much different to the last time F1 hosted the Nürburgring and Imola back in 2000, in the mid 2000s. So yeah, I'm looking forward to all of them. Can't wait to see what racing it brings and what car comes out on top. Probably the Mercedes, to be honest.
And Toussaint?
I think that they're going to be interesting. I don't think we can make any definite conclusions on how the racing is going to be at each track yet. It depends what configuration they also run with Portimao. So I don't think that just having a turn one as it is going to be okay for F1 cars unless I extend that what do you call it, the runoff area and the gravel on the outside of that corner, because you just come in there like, nearly flat. Well, not nearly flat, but at a tremendous rate of knots. So I have to put in that chicane. I actually think that might help overtaking, having a massively long straight and then heavy braking to a tight chicane. It could be good for racing. You never know. I think Imola is going to be interesting though. I hope that it's not just down to DRS passes down that really long main straight now into the Tamburello chicane, but that should be good as well. It'll be nice to see modern F1 cars whizzing their way around Imola again. Nürburgring should be pretty decent, hopefully. Good overtaking opportunities. Hopefully they don't go too overboard with the DRS and just put it at the beginning of the straight, and it's just going to be a joke, really. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to all three of them. Obviously, good to have more race on the calendar now. Mugello is going to be awful, though. I'm calling it now. I'm just saying, Mugello is going to be awful.
Well, thank you for that, you two. And another thing we're going to talk about here quickly. Vettel. I don't know, Natty, you being a Ferrari fan, you probably might not want to see him go, or you might want to see him go. It depends on what your opinion is on him. But potentially going to the new Aston Martin team, which is actually Racing Point at the moment, but will be Aston Martin for next season. Will he go there? Will he not? Or will he go somewhere else? And we'll quickly start with Natty here.
Well, I mean, obviously he's had a decent Ferrari career, I'm going to say. A fair amount of wins and podiums. I can't see him retiring. I feel like a team like, an evolving team like Racing Point will be Aston Martin. I think they'll be keen to sign the 4-time world champion. I think he'll be a good, well, it could be a good driver to help with development. Obviously, you've got a few of the older, Kimi Raikkonen, another old driver who's got Alfa Romeo. Fernando is coming back to Renault, which I quoted in episode 2 of the podcast.
I can't believe you predicted that. Like,
go check that out. So yeah, I think I can see Vettel in the pink. Well, maybe not pink at the time, but the overalls of Aston Martin. I don't think it's too early for him to leave the sport.
Toussaint?
I think that if Aston Martin if Vettel takes that, for me, it's not if Vettel goes to Aston Martin, that's completely up to him. But I think that if they're serious about winning, you can't have Lance Stroll in the other car. It has to be Perez. For me, unless Stroll comes out this season, and starts to seriously pound in some good performances against Perez. I think he did out qualifying and beat him in the race last week, but there's an asterisk against that really, because Perez wasn't 100% fit for that race. So he needs to start beating Perez on a regular basis to really, really show that he is the best option for them, because otherwise it's just nepotism. It doesn't matter how good the other drivers are. Lance Stroll will always have a seat in that team, basically, and that's not how it should be. And if they are serious about winning, currently the best possible lineup they can have to win is Perez and Vettel. End of.
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I've never really been a big fan of Stroll. Like, I've always said, like, I haven't said he's like a really bad driver, because he's a good driver, but I've just never thought he's been like at the level where he should be in Formula One. But I don't think, especially with the way Racing Point are going now, and then going into the Aston Martin team, how they are now, I just don't think personally he's good enough for that team at the moment. He could turn his fortunes around, but for me at the moment, I just don't think he's really, at the level of what Perez is, and especially if Vettel comes in as well, he will definitely not be at the level of what those two drivers are at. So, but we'll have to find out whether that happens or not. But just to end off, predictions: Silverstone this weekend, guys. Who's going to win? Who's going to crash? And any surprises along the way?
Who's going to win? Who's going to crash? All right, shall we go qualifying top 3, race top 3, and big shock?
Cool.
Yes, we'll do that.
All
We'll
right.
do that.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
We'll let
I'll go
Toussaint
first. All right,
this
fine.
Toussaint first.
All right. So in third position, Nicholas Latifi. In third position, I'm gonna go for qualifying. Sergio Perez. Second, Bottas, and pole position. I'm gonna go for Lewis Hamilton, home advantage. And then in the race, Verstappen third, Perez second, Hamilton win. Biggest shock, Bottas and Albon collide. There we go. Bottas and Albon have a crash.
The thing is, though, right? We all know that what he predicts is probably going to be true because, I mean, he already predicted Alonso to Renault. So, go on, Natty, give us your.
In that case, then Ferrari are going to win. So quali top 3 from first to third: Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen. That's going to be my top 3. Race top 3: Hamilton is going to win, followed by Bottas. No.
Mercedes
sorry,
1-2. Natty, it's a very boring Grand Prix.
Mercedes 1, Leclerc 2, Max Verstappen in third.
Okay. Biggest
shock. Someone will get a puncture.
That's not very shocking.
What?
That's like a shock.
Just at some point during the weekend. You may as well just say there's going to be a race at Silverstone on Sunday.
Right. For me, qualifying, Hamilton, Bottas, and then I'm going to go with Perez as well. I think that racing point's going to be really, really good around that track, especially since it's practically a replica Merc. So, but it isn't. But it is. But, you know what I mean? It is, but it isn't. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But for the race, Hamilton will win, home advantage. Then I reckon it'll be Bottas second. He'll hold his second place.
So
and then I think something might happen with Perez potentially, and I think it could be one of the Ferraris or maybe Max might get in there, or maybe one of the McLarens as well. It's a tough call. It's quite tight in that sort of in that area there. So we'll have to find out, and what happens. The biggest surprise, Russell gets points.
Oh, okay, that's bold. Seeing that Williams has had shocking race pace so far this season.
He qualified 12th in 2 races, so Russell wins. That's the biggest surprise. Russell wins. Everybody, big crash and boom, turn 3. We'll have like an unranked lobby. Just be people just diving it down the inside, the turn 3, and then Russell wins.
Right, just all the massive pile up, and the only 2 cars that are left are the 2 Williams.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, cool. So that's Tiger's very bold prediction there. We can start keeping track of these and then have like a point system at the end of the year.
That should be good actually.
Actually, shall we start doing that? We're going to start doing that from this point on. Okay, so 3 predictions. Okay, we get 1 point if you get all 3 right, or a third of a point if one is right.
No, you should get 1 point for each one you get right. So in total, you can get 3 points.
Okay, a point for each one that you get right. So from this point on, that's what we're doing. And you, the fans of the podcast, can also play. Leave your predictions in the description down, not the description, in the comments down below. You can't edit the description, but just leave your predictions in the comments down below, and we can do like a little, fans versus us thing. Hopefully, we'll win. But yeah, that's gonna round off episode 11 of the podcast. Dave, looking forward to doing that little predictions battle thing. We'll be having that from next week, so we can check in and see how that's doing. That's going to bring to an end episode 11, as I just said. Make sure to go and subscribe to the Gavra Racing Twitch and YouTube. The YouTube should just be in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, unless I screw something up. Yeah, again, any of the races are on the YouTube, apart from the Austria event, which is on the Twitch. If you want to be involved in an interview on the podcast, like Atimgren was this episode, remember, just send me, Natty, or Tiger a PM on either the Gavra Racing Twitter or Instagrams, or message us on PSN or Discord. If you were wondering why there wasn't an episode last week, we had some personal issues that meant that we couldn't, unfortunately, get an episode out. It wouldn't have been all three of us, and it didn't seem fair to do that to you guys, because we know you love all three of us, obviously. But yeah, that's going to be me, myself, Tucson0208 signing off.
Me, Tiger Assassin.
And me, ex Nally G.
And we hope to see you next week. Goodbye.